Hi, thanks for spending a moment with me on the video version of the Norman Goldman Show. Now, I was a practicing attorney for 25 years, and one of the things that we do that's most popular on our radio show is teach about the law. So let's spend a moment talking about civil law. In a civil law case, the government is a neutral party that simply provides a judge and a building that we call a courthouse for the private parties to just fight it out. Now, in a criminal case, the government owns the jails, owns the courts, owns the police, owns the judges. The government owns it all. And then the government is also the prosecutor and owns the prosecutor, so the government has to be very careful to kind of stay back and try and provide some basic protections to the defendant. In a civil case, by contrast, you have two private parties typically fighting over money. Now, when I say a civil case, that's kind of a broad umbrella term to describe a lot of different cases. A divorce is a civil case. Now, a divorce isn't always about money or exclusively about money, because often there are child custody issues that are part of that case. What makes a civil case is private parties fighting between themselves where the government has no stake in the matter and nobody's going to jail. The only way anyone goes to jail in a civil case, and it's very rare, is if somebody disobeys an order of the court. Now you're disobeying an order of the court, and the way the court enforces its order is to put a person in jail. You see that very, very rarely in civil cases. But if there's a breach of contract case, two private parties have a written contract to do something, or two parties have a contract that's not written, because there are oral contracts, and they sometimes get enforced in courts of law. When they have a breach of contract case, that's a civil case. A car accident case is a civil case. If someone trips and falls down the stairs or slips on a wet spot at the supermarket and breaks their elbow, that's a civil case. A probate action is a civil case, right? If somebody is wealthy or maybe not so wealthy and dies and leaves a will and a family is fighting over it, that's a civil case. So in a private civil case, what you have is people hiring their own private attorneys. Government does not provide lawyers in a civil case. Government does provide lawyers in a criminal case, but not in a civil case. In car accident cases, in personal injury cases, generally, lawyers take those cases on behalf of the injured people on a contingency fee basis, because that's often the only way an injured person can get an attorney, and the lawyer waits for compensation to settle the case or to win the case at trial before getting compensated. Typically, the lawyer gets a third, sometimes 40%, and the lawyer fronts all the costs, and a civil case can get expensive. Class actions are a type of civil case, and they take a lot of money to move forward. Now, in a type of civil litigation known as business litigation or complex business litigation, where you have two big corporations duking it out over some business venture that failed or something, oftentimes they can afford a Cadillac lawsuit, and they get a Cadillac lawsuit. They hire very expensive, fancy lawyers, and they hire all kinds of expert witnesses, and a lot of lawyers make a lot of fancy fees off of those kinds of cases. The truth is that 97 to 98% of civil cases settle before trial, very often because the economics of bringing a case to trial just aren't there. So they settle, and that's just the way it's done as a matter of practicality. Now, one last note on civil cases. Very often, the party getting sued is represented by an insurance company. And the insurance companies are very good at litigating these civil cases. And they hire lawyers with the express or implied purpose of dragging it out and just making their lives miserable. So what happens a lot of times is people get angry, they get a lawyer, they file a lawsuit, and then 3 years into it, 4 years into it, they just get sick of the thing, and that means the insurance company has done its job of hiring a nasty lawyer who has just done everything, papered the case to death, filed frivolous motions, just caused the court file to get really, really thick, and just drag people through the mud, and people just run out of energy, they run out of patience, and they give up. That's often an abuse of the legal system. It's the job of the judge to move these cases along. Very often the judges don't do that job. If you get involved in a civil case, talk to your lawyer about this. You're going to need staying power. But I appreciate you spending a moment with me, and we'll see you next time on the video version of the Norman Goldman Show.